morning. Good morning. It is Tuesday morning. It is May the 13th. What? We're almost to the middle of May. Tropical weather discussions start coming out from the National Hurricane Center in 2 days. That's crazy. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. First, I don't have my coffee here, so we're just going to have to. Okay. All right. We're going to do okay. I can feel the caffeine seething through my body. All right. This is Coffee Talk. Rise and shine, my friends. Coming to you live from Palm Beach County again this morning, where day 2 of the Governor's Hurricane Conference continues. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, let me just talk about what's going on out the door in Central Florida, because we've got impact weather this morning. Dense fog advisory in effect for many locations because visibility numbers have dropped the way that they are, down to a quarter mile or so. So just a heads up on that. If you haven't stepped out the door, it's one of those things that you may have to deal with, right? All right, let's take a look at those visibility numbers. First, dense fog advisory was in effect until 8 o'clock. That has been allowed to expire, but we still see those lowered visibility numbers around town, right? Quarter mile or so in Orlando, quarter mile in Sanford, nearly nothing over to St. Cloud. So definitely one of those situations where you just need to know, take it slow on the roads this morning. That's kind of the main idea. All right. All right. How we doing otherwise? You good? We good? I mean, it's a beautiful start. Let's look at our tower cam network. There's the Ponce Inlet. You see the lower clouds with us. Sure. Happy to report that even though we've got the low clouds and some areas with fog, look at our first warning live Doppler radar, right? We've got some gobbledygook near the radar. And then out over to Hillsborough County, we actually have some showers. But yeah, all this is gobbledygook near the radar. Just a lot of atmospheric moisture. Temperatures out the door, upper 60s, lower 70s. Forecast through the day today brings us to about 83 degrees 1 p.m., 87 degrees by 3 o'clock this afternoon. So it's going to be a nice and toasty day. Nothing like where we're headed, though. Okay? You want to talk about the change. First off, this is a cold front, at least this version of a cold front. Yesterday, temperatures were hanging in the 70s. We made it into the 80s today, or will make it into the 80s. But look at where we're headed. Friday, 93 degrees, 95 by Saturday, 96 by Sunday. Near record heat. It's going to be blasted hot. Oh, yeah, we've got it. We've got it on the way. All right. So let's talk a little bit about our forecast for today, because yes, going back to today, and we'll get into the heat in a little bit. You see, we do have some showers in the forecast. So let's get right over to our future cast. And let's see how it's playing things out. It's got the low clouds and the fog kind of burning off completely 9:30, 10 o'clock. And notice by about lunchtime, that west coast sea breeze definitely starts up. Nothing strong, but a few showers, right? Marching through into the metro 1:30, 2 o'clock. So you could see there will be a little bit of rain to track. Nothing strong, nothing significant, but there will be a little bit of rain to track. Okay, so it's not going to be a perfectly dry day. Now, that said, let's just talk for a minute about yesterday. Let's just look. New rainfall record in Orlando, 3.65 inches. That's for the day, for yesterday's calendar date. 3.65 inches of rain. Yeah. Remember when we were talking about being so dry? It's not just our comedy here. What about Sanford? 3.56 inches of rain. New record for you. Old record was in 74. The Orlando record was 76. And Daytona Beach, 2.20 inches of rain for the day. So when we look at just our overall pattern here, I I want to say it's almost funny to think about this. The entire month of April, 0.37 inches of rainfall. May 13th, almost 8 inches of rain in Orlando. The average May precipitation through today is 1.15 inches. Ah, Mother Nature giveth, Mother Nature taketh awayeth, right? Isn't that the way that goes? It's so funny. This is the 11th wettest start to a May on record. That's wild to me, right? The wettest May was in '09. We had nearly 15 inches. What are you going to do? And just as much as giveth, right? We're takething away a thing because look at the 7-day forecast here. Okay. We start off with the rain the last couple of days, but then the pattern completely shifts. Look at this. Look at this. 95, 96, 95. Yeah. Yish. Magaish. Okay. So we can dive into the other things too. I'll pause from my diatribe and I'll allow the conversation and you all to drive it. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. It's going to be dry. It's going to be hot. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Kurt says hi. Hi, Kurt. Good morning to you. Shauna says Rockville is going to be a scorcher, bringing lots of liquid IV and cooling rags. I would also imagine. So I was talking to a friend who works out at the Speedway, and he was saying the forecast looks good, but certainly they're worried about like heat exhaustion and people overdoing it with the libations, we'll say. Yeah. Mm. Take it easy if you're heading out there. Don't overdo the adult beverages, please. Please. Okay? Dehydration? No. Hydration? Yes. All right. Good morning, Tanya. Jeannie Rowan, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. April showers bring May flowers. May, hold my beer. Yeah, there were no April showers. That much for sure. Matt over at MCO. Oh, yeah. Jeannie Rowan says, isn't that the story of life? It's feast or famine. It's true. It's true. Yep, it's true. All this rain and now heat. Sharpen your lawnmower blades. I'm not looking forward to the jungle that will grow while I'm gone. Agreed. And then there's also the other side of it, which is like those of us allergy sufferers, it's going to be suffering. Like all of that rain, and then you add some sunshine. Holy cannoli. Yeah. All right. Miriam, good morning. How are you? 7-day look good. Rachel, any good topics at your conference? It's just training sessions at the moment. We haven't done like a bunch of stuff yet, so it's just starting things up. The conference is just starting things up. Mickey says, "Did you see the footage of the water spout by Leesburg?" I got an email. Let me find it. Stand by. We'll find it. 3 a.m. Okay, Christine sent this. Look at this shot here. Look at that shot. Isn't that something? Yeah, that was from yesterday. You imagine just like, I think I'm going to go fishing, and then boom, that'll get your attention. Mickey says lots of footage, right? Yeah, I mean, it photographed like that out of a movie. It was beautiful. Scary, but beautiful. Matt says, I'm the only plane on the board that is delayed. Technically, in the database, I see 7 delays, Matt. If that makes you feel any better. I've got friends visiting for the Rockville, so selfishly happy for the dry weather the next few days. Agreed. We want them to have great weather for sure. Yeah. That's the goal. You want everybody to enjoy their day, certainly. Chris is asking, are we still in a drought? That's a good question. So let's look, stand by. Drought monitor comes out Thursday morning. And it will not include, oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on. And it will not include it. Look at that. Look at that, my friends. Isn't that something? Orlando is in a rainfall surplus. Isn't that something? And we didn't need a tropical system to do it. Huh. How about them apples? Nautilus says, I got some minor flooding, but we definitely needed it. Yeah, I mean, the flooding part isn't ideal. Kara's, going to look up that spout. What lake was it over? Was it Lake Apopka? It just says from the Eustis waterfront. So Lake Dora, then, I would think. That would be my guess. All right, let's see here. Working and listening. Parched Earth graphic. Feeling it with these 90s. Well, yeah, there's that. Lake Harris era. Mickey says the Lake Harris area. Frank says we actually got a bunch of rain and the tarps are still on our office are not waterproof. That well, and my brother Frank, of course, living over on the West Coast, like the hurricanes, you know, people can't repair the stuff fast enough. So yeah, to that point, that's tough. And talking about hurricanes, right? Like 19 days until the start of the hurricane season. Did Wesh post any of my report? I don't have it set up here. Wesh.com. Did they post any of my stuff from yesterday? I'm going to go to the hurricane section and check it out. If they did, I'd love to share it with you. I didn't think to like grab it. Hurricanes. No. No, oh, no, the latest from the hurricane conference. Okay, no. So they own the last thing that they published was the Hurricane Hunter deal that I did. Yeah. Was it the rotation that caused the storm to stall? No, I wasn't looking at the radar, if I'm honest, Nautilus. I don't know. I didn't look at it. So I apologize for that. Anyways, 96. That is gross, plus humidity. Well, talking about, okay, so let me pop up the 7-day. Let's talk a little bit about this. Okay. Do that, do that, do that, do that. Okay. The 7-day forecast graphic is always a putz to load. All right. So here's the 7-day. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 95, 96, 95, right? That's obviously blasted hot. The raw GFS model data. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I love when I have to do this. All right. Give it a second. It's fine. It's fine. This is fine. Uh-uh. All right. You all. If anybody has the, has a thing that you subscribe to and it tries to limit the IPs and all this. All right. We'll do mediagrams. We'll do GFS deterministic, high, low, MCO. Okay. All right. Here's the here's the GFS data. I don't even know what do you say to that? 95, 97, 96, 98, 98, 90. Now, understand computer models are guidance, not gospel. So it's not like it's going to be those numbers, but summer is here, like it or not. Like that front that we enjoyed that brought the temperatures down just a little bit, I don't know that we're going to get another one. I would suspect that the next onset of moisture, the next onset of, when we start our sea breeze, our Central Florida rain machine again, I would suspect once that starts, we're in the rainy season. I would suspect it. You don't see a cool down there. Love that for us. I mean, I it's so funny. I almost said we need the rain, and it has clearly become like a crutch phrase of mine. Clearly, but I've got to remove that from my crutch phraseology because we don't. Good times. All right. Questions about all of this. Otherwise, we can move on. Are we good? What are y'all thinking? What are y'all thinking? How you feeling? Nautilus says no cooldowns in sight. Can't rely on cold fronts for forever. Well, and that's the way that it gets going. Brian says, here's what I say to that related to my job. Yuck. Yeah. Do you suspect stronger hurricane potential this year? Lisa's asking. So, Lisa, I put out the hurricane season forecast back at the end of February, and I think that we're going to have an active season. The full write up wesh.com, click on the hurricane section, look for the 2025 hurricane season forecast. The good news when talking about the tropics for right now is that for now, looking out, we've got the old front, okay, that's just kind of hanging out east southeast of us, bubbling. Models don't really try to do much with it. But for now, there's no development over the next 7 days. That said, so today's the 13th of May. The product that I'm displaying right now is what's known as the TWO. That's the Tropical Weather Outlook. The National Hurricane Center issues that 4 times a day, 8 a.m., 2 p.m. I'm like, wait, 8 p.m., 2 a.m. That starts up in 2 days. Do you remember a couple of years ago there was discussion, should we start hurricane season early? Should we should we, because we've had so many early season storms? Hurricane season still starts June 1st, but what the Hurricane Center did is they said, "All right, we're not going to move hurricane season per se, but we'll start putting out our tropical weather outlook on May the 15th." And it's just letting you know what they're watching. That's the product that highlights and gives percentages. There's a 10% chance of this developing, a 20%. That's the tropical weather outlook. Can you? I'm like wrapping my head around the fact that we're here, which also then means that I guess I need to get Jeremy on and start figuring out when he and I are going to start our Tracking the Tropics Tuesdays, which, if you're new to the Coffee Talk thing, okay, Coffee Talk, 8 a.m., 7 days a week for most of the, I mean, there's some days it's just not going to happen. I'll do it an hour later, whatever the case may be. But on Tuesdays during hurricane season, Jeremy Nelson and I do a broadcast like Coffee Talk, but it's strictly based in tropics. And it's a discussion. If you watch Coffee Talk, you're going to get the full update, but Tracking the Tropics has a little extra, we'll say, je ne sais quoi, right? It's a little different. So if you're looking for more, you get two for the price of one. All right, let's look at the models and let's see if they're trying to do anything. All right, do that. Do that. All right, raw GFS model. should we just cancel hurricane season altogether? David's asking. Listen, buddy, if we could, we would. There's that big ridge of high pressure building that heat in. Nice little area, low pressure, non-tropical out near Bermuda. Couple of little short waves coming off the coast of the Carolinas there. Just something interesting, nothing significant, but just something interesting. And then look at that, baked in high pressure. The end of this month is going to just be blasted hot and quite quiet. When we start up that sea breeze setup again, though, yeah. Hold on one second. So once we start the sea breeze setup up again, I would suspect that we're going to just be flat out in the rainy season. All right. Let's do this. Let's do this. That's the GFS. Let's switch over to the European. I keep missing the button. European model. Go back. We're just looking. We're just looking. Do 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 do. We'll go there. Do 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 do. A little short wave there. Wednesday. I would suspect that our rain chances would rise, and we can zoom the model in here in a little bit, but there's where, by the 24th, we're going to start. So this is an interesting setup. So the Europeans got this short wave coming off the coast of the Carolinas around the 25th of the month. That would dump enough low pressure into our area, theoretically, to restart up the sea breeze setup, theoretically, to start that rainy season up again. So that would be interesting. Let's do this. Let's go to cities. Orlando. All right. No. There. Okay. I just want to look and see. Do 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 do. Dry, mostly dry, mostly dry, mostly dry, mostly. Look at those thick, those thicknesses. Gross. 5-7. Ugh. That's the heat. Couple of showers. Monday the 26th. Oh, I got to go to the old one. Hold on a second. Boop 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 boop. Go you. Forgive me. I'm in analysis mode. Don't judge me. So it's pretty dry. The Euro's going pretty dry all the way through the end of the month. Okay. Interesting. Listen, we had our feast of rainfall, and now it looks like at least and this is 100% what we would have suspected. This year's long range cycling pattern absolutely is feast or famine. That's just the way that it is. It's half feast and half famine. Good times. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, my friends. Taylor says we're judging. I get it. I get it. Matt says June will be wet. At least like late June. But yes, late June will go wet. You're right. It's so interesting because usually you have a dynamic pattern. So if this year's long range cycling pattern is 40, 41, 42 days, right? It's literally half dry, half wet. Usually you've kind of got these ebbs and flows. This year was very interesting because it was literally feast, famine, and then recycle, feast, famine, recycle, feast, famine. So, yeah, late June will end up being quite stormy. Beginning of June through about mid June, probably not. I would even say like late June would be stormy, but up to that point, not. Catherine says, I like the famine part when it comes to tropical storm occurrence, especially come September-ish. Not so much the feast. Yeah, well, yeah, there's that. Tim's asking, so it's going to be a good day today. How is your health? I hope that that's well. Yeah, weather-wise doesn't look too bad. Frank says, that sounds like balance to me. It's always trying. It's always trying. Yeah. We can rest between punches. Come hurricane season, at least, right? And to that point, too, that's kind of the theme of this year's Governor's Hurricane Conference, is discussing how we had gotten hit as a state 3 times last year, and how the emergency management system, if you will, okay, went from um, Debbie in the Panhandle. Preparation, storm, recovery, and then as they're in recovery, Helene, storm, recovery, Milton, storm, like they had to keep, and the lines of everything kind of got blurred, right? Because they're having to track what buckets this money coming from, what buckets that money coming from. And so that was kind of the interesting lesson from last year. And then add to it that threat from flooding and that threat from tornadoes. And unfortunately, the death toll. Like we spoke to the St. Lucie County Division of Emergency Management Department Manager, the most interesting job title I've ever heard. But for St. Lucie County, if memory serves, they lost 7 people during the tornado outbreak last year in the hurricane. And his thing was, we asked him, like, what's the one takeaway from last year? And his response was, the cone and the storm is one piece, but you have to understand all of the threats that go through these storms. Like in that, in Milton, it was the worst tornado outbreak in Florida's state's history. And there was a death toll because of those tornadoes. In Ian, we can recall it was that terrible flooding. Each storm has its personality, um, and we have to be prepared for it. And I remember with both of those storms thinking like, oh, this tornado outbreak threat, or oh, this flooding threat. I remember reading that, worried about those individualities, you know? So there's that. Nautilus says, I hate how politics are such a big thing with hurricane impacts these days. We don't talk, Nautilus, we don't talk about politics on the coffee talk. But the spawn tornadoes are always the worst because of the most injuries. Well, and in this one's case, they were strong tornadoes. So yeah, I mean they were strong. Christy says, I know people that come in after the immediate recovery period and help those still in need. Check out Tropical Weather Threat Society on Facebook. It's a lot of people that help. One thing I learned when I was at the National Hurricane Conference was that, and I thought that this was fascinating. Did you know that the initial rush of helpers during Hurricane Katrina were Floridians? Did you know that? I did not. That's what's wild to me. So, those are the kinds of lessons we have to think about. My brother Frank says, and it's a very true statement, our worst surge in 100 years, and Helene was over 100 miles away, and we were nowhere near the cone. Isn't that something? Doesn't that say something? The worst storm surge in 100 years. I remember being on the air that morning and seeing the storm surge going up, thinking to myself, what the heck's going to happen if Tampa Bay or the Bay Area or the Suncoast gets a direct hit, finds themselves in that right front quadrant? That would be devastating. But that's truth, you know? Barb says my house insurance jumped 25% just because we had an estimator come out after the damage last year, even though we never filed a claim. That's wild. They're now in official intensity with the national. I don't know, Christy, what you mean by that. They've always talked about official intensity, so I don't know what you mean by that. Let's see. Kara says, I did know that. My husband and his National Guard unit were one of the first to help. Wow. Yeah. Brian says, yes, we were. First time ever we deployed over state lines and took over local law enforcement and fire service operations. See, I don't remember that. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. Can you believe it? And I did, and I'm working on the stories. I'm working on the stories from when I was out there shooting. Isn't that something? They partner with the Cajun Navy and Team Dominant. Yeah. Isn't that something? Yeah. For folks on YouTube, I see we don't need to, we're not doing politics. That's, I take the Dolly Parton mentality on things, y'all. That's all. All right. So, yeah, um, lessons learned. And I think that there's a big discussion too on just like the future of FEMA, the future of all of these different things. So those are big topics being discussed at the conference. Brian says, Eric, you were a puppy then. I was working in TV. I was over at another TV station um, in Orlando. I was in my first TV job. And I was on the air during Katrina in DeRidder, Louisiana. Tiny little station. And I remember doing a phoner with them talking about the weather. I was in college doing weather on the radio for free. And the guy finally popped on. He was like, "Hey, transmitter fell. We're off the air. Thank you for helping us." Click. Basically, you know. Elliot says, I remember them talking about how long it would take to evacuate the Tampa Metro when we were kids back in the 1980s. The infrastructure has gotten stronger, but more people. So I don't think it's changed much since then. There's only so many bridges to get you out of Pinellas, right? You go south on, what is that? Is that the Veterans? I can't remember. No, the Veterans is over by the airport. What is it? It's been a minute. You go south or you go east, and there's only so many bridges. Or you go up through like Tarpon Holiday, and go up to Citrus County. There's only so many roads in and out of that area. And there's a lot of people that live that way. My moronic brother being one of them. I only say that because he's my brother. He's not a moron. Yeah. Taylor, as much as yeah. Listen, Reed's Reed. Love him or hate him. That's all. Reed's Reed. But people need to help each other. And it's conferences like this here in South Florida that really talk about the need to help. And these are the folks that are responsible for helping us. um, they're doing what they can on the sun. I say the sunny day, like it was storming like crazy yesterday. The Gandhi, yeah, yeah, the sky. Well, the Skyway is the Skyway, right? Howard Franklin, the Gandhi, and yeah. Frank says evacuation of Tampa on a normal day's rush hour is a nightmare. Never mind a storm. It's true, right? Nautilus says, I really don't want to see the day where a major hurricane does inevitably hit the Tampa Bay region dead on. Agreed. I don't want to see that. I really don't. Though if it hits it just right or just wrong, you get a storm coming in from the Gulf, coming into like literally if the eye goes. So my brother lives in South Pinellas, Frank, that we all love. Hey, we love and accept your brother, but not the one at the competition. Even my brother at the competition's fine. He's just trying to make a living. He's in a different department. He can own the sales department, and I can own the meteorological department, and we can do that at two different TV stations. But no, brother Frank and Pinellas, my biggest worry is a storm coming directly to my brother Frank's house, just into Pinellas, where that right side spin would force water into Tampa. But that would be the absolute worst case for me. Absolute worst case. It could happen. Golly, I hope it doesn't. Yeah, but it could happen. So that's why we track storms. That's why we do what we can to help people. That's why we do what we can to learn. Hold on, station's texting. Perfection. Thank you, dear, kind, handsome, intelligent, talented, funny, What else can I say? Sir, make plans you hope to never execute. Yeah, it's true. Chris says Frank likes open houses. Not this kind. Well, Frank knows where you live to get out. To get my brother Frank to evacuate, I feel like would be not the easiest. Brian Tittle's asking. I'm drawing a blank. Who's Reed? Reed Timmer, doctorate of meteorology, has the like tornado dominator vehicles, drives into it. Yeah. Yeah. Reed does some crazy stuff. He's smart. I like the guy. He's crazy, but I like the guy. Yeah. Nikki, yes, but Frank is smart enough to listen to his little brother and will know when he needs to get out before everyone else. Barb says, we were in Denellen the weekend one arrived last year. Hubby and I put on our ponchos and overplayed Cantori on the. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. He's dumb, but he's not that dumb if his area is going to take a direct hit after what he ended. Yeah, you hope so. You hope so. But he doesn't have a door at the Eric camp. That's funny. Yeah. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, friends? Anything? Anything at all? It wasn't Tony I was texting. It was Bilal, our executive producer, just talking about our coverage plan for the day. All right. Questions? Would love to have Reed on a coffee talk drive through. Could probably figure that out. I've never met him or talked to him, but I'm sure we have enough mutual friends. I'm sure I could get to him. Oh, Kara. Yeah. I mean, I understand. I understand. Yeah. All right. Questions, comments, concerns? Jamie Lopez on YouTube. With regards to hurricane cones, did I see that there is a possibility of adding wind to the cone? So there's a lot of different products from the National Hurricane Center. There's a wind radii product. They have hurricane threat impact products, but they're not adding wind to a cone other than still stamping what the storm will be at each step. It's kind of the never ending question of like, what's the best way to do this? And so it's going to be a discussion that always is. But for this year, there's no like massive change to it, you know? Nautilus, love that the Hurricane Center is adding new features so people outside of the cone can see the impacts they get. It's coming down to the warnings, and it's coming down to the watches, and it's coming down to the HTIs, which is the Hurricane Threat Impact graphics. We show those in our WESH hurricane coverage, absolutely. Um, because that's the best way to make sure to let you know what is possible at your house. As long as as long as you understand it's not nothing's guaranteed, but at least gives you an idea of what you could deal with, right? Eric Bushman is asking on Facebook, do you recommend any personal weather station? I have a WeatherFlow Tempest. I'm not paid by them. I paid full price for my Tempest. Had it break at one point, and they did a really great, they did a really great discount to get it swapped out after a couple of years. So I can't dog them. I think that they stand behind their product. Somebody asked about the coastal 7-day forecast, so here's that for you. Even mid 90s along the coast. Pretty good there, Marie. It's going to be a hot one there too, right? Wind cones. People will decide the wind isn't bad and then get hit by water. The problem is people not listening. Yeah, that's the struggle. That's always the struggle that we deal with, right? Still learning. Terry says, thanks, Eric. I'm still learning, but every time I think I understand, another curveball is thrown. That's why we're here together. I've said this so many times. That we're going to get through whatever the heck we have to get through, right? That's all. These are only in the testing phase right now, but hopefully by next hurricane season, they're in full swing. That's it. It's just constant evolution, but correct. There's always testing going on. It's evolving and trying to figure out what works, what works for the masses, basically. Cole says, I have a Tempest too. It's great. Nice that there are no moving parts. Agreed. Yeah. Jamie Lopez says, I feel like Wesh does a great job of letting all folks know that not only to look at the cone, but everything else associated with it. Well, it's our job, we believe, to humanize it, to take all of the information and try to distill it because we know that hurricanes are scary for people. Mickey says, I also have a tempest. It's great. There you go. Um, right? Like we know that these are highly scary moments. We want to try and help you through them. That's all. All right. All right. That's all I got. It's 8:41. It's time to go start getting ready for work. Wesh 2 News at noon and Wesh 2 News at it's like 12:15 is one hit, and then 4:37 was yesterday's hit. I don't know when today will be, but somewhere in there. All right. All right. Listen, thank you all for hanging out for coffee talk. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. We'll see you guys and gals later on. Sound good? Sound good. Take care.